You're listening to Parent MD, the podcast where top pediatric experts do the homework for you, sharing clear and trustworthy medical advice so parents feel empowered to take the very best care of their kids. Welcome to Parent MD today, where we have Dr. Beth Doyle with us. Glad you could join us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's hear a little bit about where you're from originally and hear about your education, training, and career path.
Well, I was born in Dayton, Ohio, but only lived there for 8 weeks. So I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, so I consider myself a Louisville native. I left the state to go to college at Ohio Wesleyan in Columbus, Ohio, and then came back home to Louisville to do medical school. Then went back to Ohio to do training at Cincinnati Children's and University of Cincinnati, internal medicine and pediatrics.
So you're a double-boarded physician.
I am. Kind of triple-boarded if you count my international board certification for lactation consultants, too.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to talk about that a little bit. If you don't know already, breastfeeding is her passion.
Yes.
An area of expertise aside from other areas as well. So Dr. Doyle and I go way back, actually, both of us to medical school and residency time periods. When Beth was a third-year medical student, I was an intern, and she was on my team in pediatrics. And I had just gotten into my pediatric training. So it's interesting how the time flies and paths cross. And we've definitely worked together through the years in various capacities as well. Talk to us about your passion for breastfeeding, since that's what you helped us at Parent MD create here recently. It was a toolkit on breastfeeding to help parents with answer questions and resources and to go a little deeper there. So why are you so passionate about breastfeeding?
I've been a primary care physician for 17 years and kind of fell into breastfeeding based on personal experience. I breastfed my first child, and that went well. And my second child, she was born a little early, so I had a little trouble. She was a little jaundiced, and at the hospital, the lactation consultant walked in my room, saw who I was, that I was a doctor, and said, "Oh, you don't need me," and walked out. And I was kind of like, what do I do? You know, I didn't want to ask for more help. So I just kind of started reading some breastfeeding literature and books and got very fascinated with the science behind it all. And my breastfeeding career with her went great. We ended up nursing 1.5 years. And then I started to kind of think more about it. Like, why isn't there a specialty for breastfeeding? Why am I not taught more? I went to one of the best residency programs for pediatrics in the country. And, you know, they taught me a little bit, but there was so much more to learn. So I sought a CLC certification, which is Certified Lactation Counselor. That's a 45-hour course with a little test and mostly educational, not really experiential. And when I was taking that course, the directors came up to me and said, "It's really rare that we have physicians take this course. We want to tell you about the Academy of Breastfeeding Medicine." That is a worldwide organization for physicians who are interested in breastfeeding medicine. And so I signed up for the first meeting somewhat hesitantly, and I'll never forget it. I walked in that door and I said, I found my people. And I was fascinated by every single talk and got so excited and, you know, joined the organization, got their journal, read everything I could. So that's kind of where that part started.
We've been able to work together closely for the last 10 plus years, and I've never met anybody more passionate about breastfeeding than you. Ironically, my wife and I had a similar experience with our newborn, our first one, 24 years ago here in September. He was born jaundiced. We were trying to breastfeed first one. I was a third-year med student. I knew that I knew enough I didn't know much. And here she's trying to breastfeed, and I'm no help. No help at all. And we watch him. He quits peeing. No more wet diapers. He's getting more yellow. He's shriveling up. Yeah. And those around us just kept telling us, "Oh, just keep trying to breastfeed. Don't give any formula." Yeah. Well, from that time forward, I was freed to tell people, "No, you can take some formula. Yeah. It's okay. It doesn't mean you won't breastfeed, and it doesn't mean it's all right. And it doesn't mean it's not okay also start with formula as well if you need to." So being on those journeys and those experiences, I think definitely ingrain certain passions in all of us. And so I'm with you, big advocate for parents feeling empowered, reassured, knowing their resources. And because when you go through those experiences, they're life changing, and they impact the mental well-being of everyone in the family. So something I wasn't even thinking about till what you were just talking about, though. How can fathers support their spouses, the mothers of their children when they're going through this? Because all the attention is on the mother, as it should be. But what can we say to help fathers in these situations?
Well, and it's really important to have a supportive partner that can make or break your breastfeeding career. And I was lucky. My husband was able to stay home with our children when they were very young. And I think that's why I was able to breastfeed for so long. And that's something that, there aren't a lot of dads that do that. And that's rare. But, in other cases, it's really important for the mom to kind of know her breastfeeding goal. 84% of moms in the U.S., the most recent data, will start breastfeeding. But there's a steep drop-off. At 6 months, only 53% of moms are breastfeeding, and at a year, it's only about 35%. So it's real important for a mom to know that and vocalize her goal to her support people. And then, even in the middle of the night when it's really hard and she wants to give up, if the dad can just support her in that goal, or the partner, and bringing other people in who have experience, helping her kind of focus on what she needs to focus on in that first few days, doing everything else, take the baby after the feeding and change the baby. Like, just let the mom focus on feeding, and that's all they need to do. Take care of the other kids, take care of the house, all that stuff.
So do you think we're doing a better job in society in the healthcare realm and just families and such of being supportive of whichever choice parents choose for their child in feeding, whether it's breastfeeding or formula, and being supportive and making sure we remove guilt and don't put all the pressure on, and say that we're there to help and know that both options are great options. Obviously, we prefer, as pediatricians, breastfeeding, and but we know not all of it. Everyone can breastfeed and as easily as others, and some choose not to. But we support both sides.
Well, and I think that's tricky. As a doctor, I'm trained to be science-based, and the science shows that breastfeeding's better for your baby. But you also have to be realistic. Like, I'm an adult doctor too, so I'm talking to patients every day now about COVID vaccine. Guess what? There's some of them choosing not to do it. Right. So you have to present the information to parents, and they have to choose. There are some people, we think maybe 1 to 10% of people, who cannot breastfeed.
Right.
There's huge societal barriers for moms. Everybody says that breastfeeding's cheaper than formula, but I have to argue it isn't always cheaper. We have moms who are single moms who work 3 jobs. We have moms who don't have a place to pump. We have moms who can't afford a pump. We have moms without supportive partners to be there for their journey. And it's a lot more difficult. And if you have to go back to work in 3 jobs in 4 weeks after you have a baby, how can you breastfeed?
It just may not make sense for them.
So we have to really support moms where they are. We have to give them the best evidence. But we are lucky we live in a country where we have clean water, and we, for the most part, have safe formula access.
Right.
So you just have to kind of look at the whole family and the whole picture.
That's great. I just want to make sure our families and parents listening out there know that pediatricians, for the most part, I think, are there to support the parent on that journey. And our job is, as you said, is to provide information and support, encouragement, assurance, and empower them in every way.
And help them to there's so much information out there, and they're going to get, well-intentioned advice that might not be the right stuff, but to kind of help to know what advice to listen to.
Right. And we talked about that earlier. Where do parents go to for bits of advice? Our recommendation is always going to be, as you expect, is to go to your primary doctor.
Right.
Go to your pediatrician, go to your medical home. That's what they're there for.
Right.
And then don't hesitate when the doctor's not available to talk to those on the doctor's team, the nurses and MAs, because they have a lot of experience. So never feel like you're bothering anybody at the doctor's office by calling and saying, I need to talk to someone.
Right.
Now, thank goodness, too, there's a lot more people in the offices that are lactation consultant, counseling trained.
Yeah.
And, last 20 years, that has picked up a lot in the offices.
Yeah, definitely.
So the resources are much more abundant than they used to be. What's the future of breastfeeding, do you think, in the next 10 years when it comes to healthcare delivery, societal acceptance, embracing, and supporting? Or what do you think will be new in the realm of science when it comes to breastfeeding that maybe we hadn't thought about?
Well, I think we are definitely seeing an uptick in research. We are seeing a lot more research on other impacts beyond just the baby, like on maternal health. We're seeing a lot more of that as population health becomes more important. I think in society, some of the countries, European countries like Sweden that have the longer maternity leaves, I think we're valuing that motherhood more for our people, and hopefully we'll get some more support around
and
going back
valuing
to
the
work.
Father or paternal side to be there to support more.
There's a lot more companies doing paternity leave now, so that's exciting. I think the pandemic has brought the silver lining of telemedicine, and that's huge in lactation. We use that a lot at the beginning because moms didn't want to bring a newborn baby out in the COVID world. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. It lends itself very well to that.
Right. So through all of your years of experience, what's the best advice that you can give parents if you were just given the opportunity to tell them two things? Two things.
I think number one, I would say relax. We are mammals. We are named after our mammary glands. and you have to just trust the process.
All right.
It's not easy, as your wife and me both found out. There's barriers, but I think we give moms so many rules. Hold the baby this way, open the mouth this way, listen to this. But I think we need to take a step back and let the process happen. So that would probably be my number one. And number two is reach for help. Don't try to do this on your own. Don't give up until you've looked for help, because those first few months, weeks and months of having your child are abler anyway, and all of it's tough. Sleep, everything. So reach out for help.
Yeah, I think that's great. So to relax and to reach out for help. I feel like through the years personally, and what I've seen with other families, is that the best support you can get is from someone who's done it, someone you have a close relationship. So I'm sure you would totally support first, instead of reading a book, get with your siblings, close friends who breastfed, because they're going to be able to boil all that down in a way that a book may not get you there.
Right.
It doesn't mean books and articles aren't good resources. Yeah. And it doesn't mean your doctor and others aren't. But I've found families and friends that you're close to, you can have any conversation with. Right. They can talk you through and support you as much as anything. And then be right there when you're doing it. They're the ones you can talk to 11 o'clock at night when you're not going to call somebody else. And then your spouse, too, if they're just being supportive and saying, we'll figure this out together.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about that in the toolkit that, back in the caveman ages, we've been breastfeeding. We are a breastfeeding species. And so back then, your mom's there, your aunt's there, all your extended family is there to help you. And over the years, we lost that. So reclaim that. That is very important.
Yeah, we definitely don't have the extended families living together like they used to. In some societies, definitely that's more ingrained in. But there's a big benefit of that. And I think we're having more geographic disparity, more generational disparity, separation, and more people are finding themselves on islands. So, that you definitely want to find that team that is there to support you night and day, because it is a night and day, literally, isn't it? So what would be your top advice to your fellow doctors and other providers who are taking care of these families? So I love what you said to the parents, but what would you tell the doctors trying to help provide an environment and support these parents?
I think we need to remember that breastfeeding often becomes very personal for patients and staff, but we need to keep the science in the back of our mind and, always put the patient first, but make sure you're giving them the information that's out there about the benefits of breastfeeding. And this is something I learned from the lactation consultants. There's 3 principles to baby feeding. Number 1, feed the baby. If you have a sick baby like your son got that just was too tired to eat and latch, he's going to need something. He's going to need formula or donor milk, something to get him going again. So number 1 is feed the baby. Number 2 is protect the milk supply. So get that mom pumping. And number 3 is work on the latch. down the road. So if you remember those 3 principles to getting a baby taken care of with feeding, that's all you need to know.
So what level of confidence do you have in others like you with your level of expertise that if you're able to spend some time with a mother, that you can help them be successful if they want to and physically they're able to breastfeed?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a confidence game. I think new moms need somebody to believe in them and need reassurance because, for the most part, the ones who need help are the first-time parents, first-time moms. And if they've never done this, it's scary and they need to know that they're doing it okay. So that is most of the game. I remember my sister, when her first was born, she had an amazing labor and delivery nurse who in the postpartum and post-op was like, "You're doing such a great job. This baby knows how to latch. Look at him go." That is half the battle.
Right.
And that's, you don't have to go to medical school to do that. So just give that parent that confidence.
But isn't that psychosocial component so key? And it comes up a lot in recent discussions with other healthcare providers. It's key in life in general that we all do better when we're assured, when we're cheerleaded. Somebody's cheerleading for us. Yeah. We're inspired or engaged because somebody says they believe in us, and all of a sudden we have superpowers to do things that maybe we didn't think that we could do.
Right.
And so I just always think that the doctor, that's a big part of their role is coaching, inspiring, and getting the patient to believe. Because otherwise, again, that's motivational interviewing. Because if they're not compliant or don't feel like they can do it, they won't do it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They will fail if they don't believe in it.
That's like a tenet of parenthood you just described about, how you treat your kids.
Exactly. Yeah. It plays in all facets of life and definitely breastfeeding as well.
Definitely.
Well, Dr. Doyle, thank you for being with us, and we appreciate your partnership and collaboration with Parent MD, and really appreciate your support in putting together this toolkit for breastfeeding. I know it's going to be a great support, great conversations to share with parents and resources that you've identified, and it's all because of your passion. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. You've been listening to Parent MD, the podcast where top pediatric experts do the homework for you, sharing clear and trustworthy medical advice so parents feel empowered to take the very best care of their kids. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and click on that follow button on your favorite podcast app. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a single episode. And while you're at it, why not leave a 5-star rating and comment as well? We'd love to hear your feedback, and it helps other parents find the show. The Parent MD podcast is a part of Parent MD, a new way for pediatricians to help parents. Parent MD is an online source of parent information you can trust, straight from board-certified pediatricians. For more information about Parent MD, visit us at our website, www.parentmd.com. That's it for this episode, but we will be back soon to tackle another topic to help parents make confident and informed decisions about their children's health.